If you read an article about carpal tunnel, your wrists and hand is more likely to start hurting. If you're around someone with back pain, you're you're more likely to get back pain. If you're around someone with fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome, you're more likely to think that you have fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome. If you step on a nail and the nail goes right through your boot, you're very likely to experience extreme pain, even if the nail doesn't even injure you. Like, let's say it goes right through your toes. You're very likely to experience extreme pain with a nail just going like up through your boot and through your toes. It doesn't even hit you, but you're very likely to feel extreme pain. It's just amazing how contagious pain is. It used to be that hysteria, like married women particularly, were always coming down with hysteria in the late 19th century. Then by the 1920s, that diagnosis just completely disappeared. And now it's back pain. Everybody's got back pain, it seems. That's like the socially acceptable illness. On the other hand, let's say you have an accident in a work site and a nail goes through your fingers. If you know what you need to do, if you're focused on your agenda, it may not hurt you hardly at all. Like if you have friends, pain is going to be much less disabling. If you don't have friends, the pain is much more likely to be intense. If we had a traumatic experience, say with a helicopter or a gunshot or any life traumatic experience, and then we hear the helicopter again or a gunshot again or fireworks again, anything that like ties into some past traumatic experience, like we're likely to experience the agony again. So I'm just kind of humbled by how much variability there is in pain. And if the people around us get a divorce, we're much more likely to get divorced. If the people around us cheat on their wives, we're much more likely to cheat on our wife. If the people in our network gain weight, we're much more likely to gain weight. It's just so humbling, because I know, it seemed like for me in 1988, my life changed overnight when I got, what felt like mononucleosis again for the second time, but I could never get over it. Like one day I could run 3 miles and feel fine afterwards. The next day, if I ran 3 miles, I would get sick, and I experienced it as I would never be able to run 3 miles again without getting sick. But like, what if that was all in my mind? I had one psychiatrist whose theory was, for Luke, chronic fatigue syndrome was his face-saving way of failing, which is just unfathomable to me, because ostensibly my life was great. Was I looking for a face-saving way of failing? Was I looking for a way to manipulate other people for love and attention without even being conscious of what I was doing? And so I started journaling about these things. Like, what's a painful truth that I'm ignoring in my life right now? What are pressures in my life that I'm just completely oblivious to right now? Like, what about the pressure to start a family, get married? I mean, there's a lot of pressure in Orthodox Judaism and in normal, healthy society that you settle down and you get married, particularly in traditional life. And I might be completely oblivious to it, but unconsciously, I'm still experiencing that pressure, and it might manifest in sleepless nights, might manifest in increased anxiety, digestion troubles, irritable bowel syndrome. Like IBS is actually 100% in your head. It has to do with, it's a physical manifestation of your anxiety. 90% of back pain, headaches, neck pain is not caused by anything structural. It's somaticizing, meaning medical symptoms without any evident medical cause. Like, am I doing enough? Am I accomplishing enough? Am I good enough? I feel pressure to be a good person. I really want to be a good person. Am I good enough? Am I decent enough? Am I kind enough? Am I accomplishing enough? Like, those are normal pressures that people feel, and they might not even be conscious of. Like, if I am filled with unconscious rage, what is it about? Like, people like me, we often tend to take underpaying work because we feel inadequate. And so we just accept being treated badly, doing low level jobs way below your skill level. Like, I had one boss says, oh, the only reason you work here is that you want to avoid responsibility. So it's been very common for me to take low paying jobs through much of my life. And why do we take low paying jobs? Because we feel like that's all we deserve. We don't deserve anything better than that. We feel inadequate. We feel unworthy. And so we simply accept being treated badly in relationships and at work. I've often dated and slept with a lot of homely women. Why? Because attractive women, like women who are a 7 or above, they were too challenging for my sense of self. I didn't feel like I was worthy. I remember I was at a party for, who's the director of Mulholland Drive? David Lynch. So I was invited to a birthday party for David Lynch. And Nicole Kidman was there, Sting was there, many of the stars of the movie were there, and I was introduced by a friend to Laura, the gorgeous brunette in Mulholland Drive, who's a former Miss World. And like, my friend was encouraging me to date her. He was like setting me up with her. And she was friendly. She was friendly to me beyond that which was socially necessary. And I felt completely unworthy of dating a Miss World. All right. I mean, this goes back to 6th grade. I come to the United States in 1977. I begin 6th grade. And very quickly, the most attractive girl in the class, Cindy, she drops a note on my desk asking me to go with her. And I adored this girl. There was nothing I wanted more in my life than to be boyfriend to Cindy. And how did I respond? I froze. I felt tremendous anxiety. I didn't know who I could talk about this with. And so I responded by teasing her. I responded by destroying the thing that I wanted most. And that's been a lifelong pattern for me. When I get close to having the things that I want the most, I find ways of destroying them. So here I am. I got a friend setting me up with a Miss World. And she's friendly. She's open to me. She's engaging. She's asking questions. And I'm like, I'm fleeing from that interaction. Like, there's no way that I have the self-esteem, the self-confidence to date a Miss World. Like, I barely have the self-esteem or confidence to date a 7, at least historically. So I've always pretty much dated 5s and 6. Any girl who's more attractive than a 6 is too threatening to my sense of self, and I feel like she'd be too much work. So just as I've always tended to take low-paying jobs because I don't feel like I'm worthy of anything more, I've tended to date, women below me in sexual social status because I figure there'll be less effort. I'll have to spend less effort. I won't have to be as on good behavior, and they'll be more grateful, and it'll just be easier. Like, if I was to date a 7, it would challenge my sense of self. Am I worthy of her? And then I'd probably find ways to sabotage. But I've rarely had the experience of dating a 7. When I have met 7s, 8s, 9s, and 10s, I've just found ways to immediately stop any escalation. So I would have friends who would notice, women who are 7s, 8s, 9s who are hitting on me, and they would say, like, why are you sabotaging it? She was so obviously hitting on you. She so obviously wants to fuck you, and you're sabotaging it. Like, why on earth would you do that? And it's because I simply didn't feel worthy, right? You can never succeed beyond the level that you feel like you can. Like, well, on the other hand, I had my friend Kevin Blatt, and Kevin Blatt, who's a sex tape broker and comes from a background of marketing in the porn industry, he was fucking tens. Like, he was fucking, who was that Eurasian vivid girl? You know, he met her for dinner and, you know, did everything with her that night. Like, he was banging like primo 10 out of 10 porn stars. Like, he was just banging hot chicks just constantly. I remember once I think he met up with Mary Carey, former gubernatorial candidate Mary Carey, met up with her at a strip club or something. He ends up spending the night with her. There might have been a little alcohol involved. And she woke up in the morning. She woke up at like 3 a.m. And she said to Kevin, "Are you a rapist?" Like, my friend Kevin, he would be banging like smoking hot strippers. He's banging smoking hot strippers. And then the next morning, you know, and Kevin is not a model, all right? He is like, in looks, he's like 3 out of 10. But he's very charming. He has tremendous self-confidence. I do notice that about Jews, that they tend to have tremendous self-confidence. Tend to have like twice the self-confidence level of Seventh-day Adventists. So he's like banging strippers, like he's banging strippers who are like a 9 or a 10. And the next morning, you know, what do they say? You know, you got a stripper who's a 10. You got, you know, Kevin, who looks like a 3 out of a 10, but with a great personality. And they say, "Oh, thank you for being such a gentleman." So why are strippers telling Kevin, "Thank you for being such a gentleman"? And he'd go, "Why do you say that?" And she said, "Oh, because you didn't come on my face while I was sleeping." Right? That's the level. Like, Kevin is this 19th century Victorian gentleman because he doesn't ejaculate on her face while she's sleeping. And I remember, you know, I banged some porn stars, but, you know, I banged Kit Natividad, I think, when she was 52 and I was 27. And then I banged some other porn stars, but, you know, they were probably like 7s. And so I felt 7 or less. And so I felt that didn't challenge my sense of self. And I remember there was this one porn star who I spent an erotic few days with in Las Vegas. And her greatest insecurity, her greatest pain was that she was not hot, right? She was a 6 or a 7. She was incredibly she was enthusiastic. She was wonderful in bed. She was smart, articulate, intelligent, you know, very pleasant person to be with. But it killed her that she was not beautiful. You know, she was just slightly above average in her looks. And I remember, like, she said I could stay with her in Vegas while I was covering the convention. And so I was lying on my bed. I'd come in, I was lying on my bed. She was lying on her bed. And she went to get changed. And so, being the 19th century Victorian gentleman that I am, you know, I just kind of like turned to the side to look at the wall to give her privacy when she was getting changed. And she said, "You know, you don't have to look away." And she says, you know, I'm your biggest fan. And so then I said, "Oh, can I, you know, get into bed with you?" And she said, "No, I'll get into bed with you." And so she's naked. I'm very quickly naked. You know, she, you know, not a whole lot of foreplay, you know, maybe 2 minutes of foreplay, and find out she doesn't like to use condoms. So she says she's allergic to condoms. And so she's allergic to latex condoms. So she bought like 5 special condoms that she wasn't allergic to. And so she brings out one of those. I slide it on. She slides on top of me. And she says, "Well, what do you like to do in bed?" And I said, "Well, I'm a very conservative man." She said, "Very conservative man? You know, you've been in the room 5 minutes and you're already up inside of me. You know, that's not like a very conservative man." I said, "I just like all American sex. You know, I don't need anything special or kinky. You know, I'm a simple man. I like simple things. You just go ahead and straddle me. I'm down with it. We don't have to play any special games. And so we just had like regular, all American sex. She was on top. And then we missed like the greatest college football game of all time because we were busy having sex. The Texas upset of USC in the Rose Bowl, I think in January of 2006. So we missed that. We go to dinner. We come back. We have sex again. Then she goes out to a party. And then she comes back about 2 a.m. and we have sex again. And this time I ask her, can we do doggy style? And she like laughs at me. Oh, was that January 2007? Okay. She laughs at me. She says, most guys just like pick me up and move me, into position, like whatever they want to do. They just grab me and move me around. And like, this is how lacking in confidence I am. Like, here I am with this ex-porn star who adores me. Now, she's my biggest fan. She's EF, totally down to fuck. Glad to do pretty much anything I want to do. And I'm asking her, can we do doggy? I might have even said, may we do doggy? And she's like laughing at me. She says, like, most guys just like move me into position. So, not exactly take charge Lothario here. And I probably only felt comfortable, banging her so much, so often, and so quickly upon meeting because she was a 6. If she'd been a 7.5 or an 8, I wouldn't have had the confidence. And so I think this carries on to a whole bunch of life. Like, let's say, okay, I'm at that party for David Lynch, and my friend tries to set me up with Laura Harraring, Miss World, and I like flee, even though she's super friendly to me. And then there are conversations going on around me. There's Sting, who's talking to Nicole Kidman, and Naomi Watts. So they're all right beside me carrying on a conversation. But I flee from that conversation. Like, I am not worthy to be having a conversation with Laura Harraring, Sting, Nicole Kidman, Naomi Watts. A lot of people are gathered around David Lynch. I don't feel worthy to be in a conversation with David Lynch. So, Hollywood A-listers, some B-listers at this party. My friend's trying to set me up with these like gorgeous actresses, right? He invites me to other parties, other gatherings. He's like setting me up with, gorgeous actresses. And I'm like fleeing, not necessarily physically fleeing, but I'm kind of removing myself. Like, if I felt confident, like with a 6, I feel totally confident hitting on a 6. But because these were 9s, like I'm very awkward. I'm stilted. I'm essentially, destroying any possibility of connection because I don't feel worthy. And my friend said, go for it. Like, what's the matter? You're totally worthy of dating these women. You have so much to give. And at the David Lynch party, I end up kind of retreating to the back. I basically get as far away from everybody as possible at the David Lynch party. And my friend gets Gary Oldman's manager. I remember Gary Oldman's manager is one of the few open conservatives in Hollywood. And my friend gets, Gary Oldman's manager to come talk to me about Dennis Prager. Like, he knows I like to talk about Dennis Prager, and he sees that, I'm backing about as far away from the party as possible. And so he sends Gary Oldman's manager over to talk to me about Dennis Prager. So, my friend's doing everything he can. He's setting me up with all these various celebrities, and I just keep backing away until this, Gary Oldman's manager takes mercy on me. And I ended up telling him, very quickly, I got narcissistic personality disorder. He says, oh, that's very common. I know lots of people in Hollywood who have narcissistic personality disorder. It puts me completely at ease. But I shouldn't have to depend upon the kindness of strangers. I should not be, like that screenwriter in Sunset Boulevard. That's what a friend of mine says. I remind him of of that bloke in Sunset Boulevard. I'm just, I'm dependent upon the kindness of strangers, right? Sunset Boulevard, 1950s movie, and it's about an aging screenwriter, and he can't find work. He's not able to sell his work to the studios. He's full of debts. He's thinking of returning to his hometown to work in an office. That's what I thought about for years. I'm going to have to return to Australia and live with my family because I just can't make it in Los Angeles. Between 2010 and 2016, I had over $50,000 in credit card debt, and I was only earning about $30,000 a year. So this film, 1950 film, stars William Holden as Joe Gillis, very much like me, a struggling writer, and he can't sell his work, he can't make a living, and he's thinking of returning home. So for years, between 2011 and 2015, till I found the right 12-step program, I was thinking, I'm going to have to return home to Australia. I'm going to have to move in with my family. I can just barely survive. I'm crushed with debt. And so Joe Gillis, the struggling screenwriter in this movie, he gets essentially adopted by this older silent film star, Norma Desmond. And he resents the situation. She flatters him by hiring him as a script doctor. He moves into her mansion, and he resents it. So Holly Randall, the pornographer, she has had a habit of dating broke male writers like her father. Father was a broke male writer who married Suze Randall, the erotic photographer. So Suze was the main moneymaker, and Humphrey just assisted Suze. And so Holly has perpetuated her mother's pattern of dating a lot of broke writers, and she said virtually all of them resent it when she pays the bills. But Luke, for some reason, he didn't resent it. He was just fine with her paying for everything. So the struggling screenwriter moves into the mansion of this fading, long-forgotten silent film star, Norman Desmond, and he resents his dependent situation, but gradually accepts it, and she wants him to feed her delusions, and he realizes that she's fallen in love with him, and he keeps trying to let her down gently. The only reason, though, he's in this pathetic situation is he doesn't have the capacity for standing on his own 2 feet. He's just a classic under-earner. And this costs him his life. Because if you're not willing to stand up for yourself, if you're willing to just keep accepting low-quality relationships and low-quality work, there are no end of people who will take advantage of you, and there's no substitute for a spiritual problem beyond a spiritual solution. Like, if you can't rewire how your brain works, you'll never be at ease with prosperity, either prosperous relationships or prosperous income or prosperous standing in the community. Like, if you feel like you're crap, then you'll only encounter and encourage people coming into your life who treat you like crap.